Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Meet the Analyst webinar, Beyond the Hype, Realistic Insights on Generative AI and Content Marketing. I'm your host, Jeremy Goldman, Senior Director of Client Briefings at Insider Intelligence, and I'm here in our global headquarters in Times Square, and I'm joined by my colleague, Principal Analyst Kelsey Voss, who's in Seattle. Hey, Kelsey, great to have you here.
Hey, Jeremy, it's great to be here today.
Yeah, and before we get into the main presentation, which I'm very excited for, I'd like to thank Yext for making today's webinar possible and welcome Christian Ward, Chief Data Officer at Yext. He's joining us from Florida. Hey, Christian.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. A few things before we dive in. We have a ton of information to share, but there's no need to take notes if you'd rather not. We'll email you a link to view the slides and the full recording of today's presentation afterwards, but we do want you to participate. Just use the chat window on the right of the video feed to submit questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A at the end of the session. So with that, Kelsey, let's get started.
Thank you, Jeremy. This is an incredible time for content marketers. A massive transformation is underway for marketers in the way they create, iterate, distribute, manage, and even think about content. Now, AI-generated content isn't necessarily new to marketers who have been using tools such as AnyWord, Jasper, Copy AI, and others for some time now. But large language models are getting more powerful and sophisticated in natural language processing. So today, we're going to walk through the ways in which generative AI is currently making the biggest impact for content marketers. I'll also share the importance of human touch, and I'll highlight the technology's limitations and drawbacks that businesses and their marketers need to keep in mind as they implement and integrate Gen AI tools into their workflows. Also, I will go over why, despite some fear, Gen AI will not replace marketers. And I'll share tips on how to build your content strategy that incorporates Gen AI. So let's dive in. Clearly, Gen AI is making an impressive impact and changing how content marketers reach and engage with their audiences at every touch point across the customer lifecycle. And the majority of marketers are excited about Gen AI. Why? You can see in the Sitecore survey from March that over 50% of marketers say all of these reasons listed here are factors. Its ability to improve research, create and scale content faster, whiteboard feature campaigns and ideas, provide a better customer experience, create images, and improve backend processes. To take a step further, a March 2023 survey from Botco revealed that 58% of marketers that use Gen AI reported increased performance overall, proving it's more than just a burst of excitement. Gen AI does deliver. I would argue that generative AI has changed content marketing forever. And there are three key ways where it can help and have a dramatic impact now. The first is ideation. AI tools can help marketers brainstorm, develop themes and subjects, discover alternate points of view, and provide inspiration to remove writer's block. The next is time and saving it. Marketers spend a lot of time creating content, and AI can simplify and expedite the writing process for easy tasks. For instance, AI tools can produce headlines, subject lines, image descriptions, and more at lightning speed. It can help improve content management and support complex content distribution to various channels. The third bucket is more about leveraging your content for the best outcomes and relevancy. First is optimization. For instance, AI tools can research and generate millions of relevant and competitive keywords to help content rank higher and perform better in search. AI can also track the rankings and continually identify new keyword opportunities. Repurposing is a strategy used by many marketers. They might have what's called a pillar content, say a white paper, and they'll generate millions or multiple, maybe millions, but multiple variations of this white paper into different formats. And AI can help do this. Maybe maybe millions. It can take an original piece of content and create micro content. For example, it can take a keynote speech and turn it into a blog, or take a video customer testimonial and turn it into a written case study.
I'm glad, by the way, Kelsey, just to jump in
Yes.
for a second, I noticed personalization here. I feel like obviously it's so closely tied to repurposing, but a bit different. And especially for B2B marketers, that's been a pain point for years, where you know that if you can get deeper and make each industry feel like you really truly understand their business, you're going to be able to transact with them more and sell into those accounts more. But it's just so difficult to do that at scale. And I feel like with Gen AI now, it's a little bit more, you're able to do that through personalization.
You're absolutely right. B2B it's very difficult sometimes to go into verticals as opposed to just being on a horizontal, level content across the board there with your audience. So you're absolutely right. Gen AI can certainly help with that. It can track buyers' behavior and customer behavior and help generate that relevant content specific to their industry in specific geographic locations at specific times, and in different languages that resonate with each customer, which produces a better performance overall. And over and over, studies with different audiences of US marketers and marketers worldwide are sharing how they adopt more Gen AI into the mix. Here you see respondents to a Q2023 survey by Beantown Media Ventures. They shared how they use Gen AI for generating keywords, content ideation, and repurposing content. If you fast forward to May 2023, Salesforce survey shows a much greater number of respondents using Gen AI for content creation, writing copy, and inspiration. And a May Binder study further reveals how marketers at major global brands, including Spotify, Puma, and Five Guys, are embracing Gen AI tools. According to the study, content teams are leveraging AI integrations to automate tedious, time-consuming tasks such as creating first drafts and checking spelling and grammar, and also to make the most out of their valuable content by repurposing this content into not only different formats that may be more appealing to certain buyers, but also to change the tone of the content to match the medium, or rephrase personalized chatbot responses, for instance, specific to that buyer in their language and tone of voice. In combination with natural language processing, marketers can scale up multiple pieces of SEO optimized content or chatbot responses that are hyper-personalized. So we can briefly look at one channel that's arguably the most popular for marketers, and that is social. Gen AI can support social media marketing content by providing marketers with much desired speed, efficiency, and optimization. Marketers can use Gen AI to automate A/B and multivariable testing on thousands of copy and image variations to determine which perform best, thus improving impressions, conversions, and overall performance metrics. Another benefit is producing content for different social channels. Only 3 out of 10 marketers tailor content to individual social networks, according to a November 2022 survey by Analytica.
Kelsey, by the way, just to jump in, that's
Sure.
something that some of the brand marketers that I'm interviewing, they say a major pain point for them is that they know that different types of content will perform in different manners across different social platforms. But of course, what they're often doing is cutting and pasting from one to the other to the next. I love that you got threads in here, by the way. I think that is just a major pain point. And I feel like with Gen AI, you've obviously got the ability to write some prompts and essentially reformat things so that they have the best chance at performing across each platform.
Absolutely. And it's not just interchanging one word for another. It's really helping to update that content based on channel specific criteria. So it will resonate with the buyers on those platforms. And so, messaging on LinkedIn is going to be extremely different than messaging on TikTok, for instance. And audience engagement. Gen AI can help generate posts in multiple languages with specific tone and terms and phrases, again, that can make a brand stand out from the competition and positively resonate with different social audiences. Engaging content, such as attention-grabbing social media posts, can foster brand loyalty. Hyper-personalized experiences with the help of Gen AI can exceed customer expectations and foster a better connection. According to a March 2023 survey by Sitecore, 75% of US marketers said Gen AI will help improve the customer experience by allowing them to create personalized content for their audiences. On the flip side, Gen AI can positively influence the brand's relationship with customers. 74% of marketers said AI can help them more fully understand their customer needs, therefore providing better customer experiences. So done right, Gen AI can enhance and streamline content activities, allowing marketers to improve their performance and focus on creative tasks and the quality of their content. But you'll hear, even from me, that Gen AI can humanize messaging, sometimes better than humans. And it can, take a social ad again, AI can generate a ridiculous amount of variations at scale using tones and words that trigger emotional responses. It can test and iterate those posts, and it can very quickly produce better performing copy. But Gen AI cannot replace content marketers and their human creativity. Consider what Michael Brenner shared with me recently, which is the paradox of AI. The more automation and AI we use, the more audiences will expect us to connect with them as humans. We crave human interaction, and most of us don't want to interact solely with Siri or Alexa or Google because AI lacks emotional intelligence and real personal experience that drives the human creative process. Warren Daniels, CMO of Binder, echoes this sentiment. He said in a June press release that quality content must still be created with thorough research, a true understanding of a brand's key messages and tone of voice, and with human empathy. AI should be used in a managed or controlled way to enable human creativity, not hamper it. So that leads us to some of the least promising use cases of this technology that still require the human touch, at least for now. First is creating original, high-quality content. Content that has empathy and humor, content with fresh ideas based on current trends or topics, or advice from influencers and original perspectives that can only be written by experienced human writers. Another difficult task for Gen AI, especially AI not trained on a brand, is creating brand-specific content, not just going off standard brand guidelines, but unique brand storytelling, such as copy for a major product launch or timely or serious company announcements. This usually goes beyond AI's ability to match a brand style and tone and requires human authors. Creating authoritative content is also not reliable with Gen AI. Marketers can't rely on AI for reputable content with a verified point of view or for data that's citable, credible, and trustworthy. ChatGPT generated copy is frequently full of nonsensical and incorrect information, and it cannot replace true thought leadership.
By the way, I can't help but think, like, absolutely, first off, amen to this point, but also going back to that idea of thought leadership you just brought up, I mean, you might even want to push back on a Gen AI tool if it's giving you a point of view, because thought leadership means having your own perspective. It means not parroting ideas that have been out in the blogosphere for a few years already, right? So it just seems to me like it's impossible to stand out if you're trying to just echo what everybody else has said before.
Absolutely. You'll end up with copy that's the same from competitor to competitor, and that's not going to resonate well at all with audiences. And nothing can replace the human experience that we've even had from, say, last night or this past week. Gen AI just can't replicate that. So the next point here on what Gen AI has a really hard time doing is creating publish-ready content. Definitely an issue. Most marketers still need to spend a significant amount of time from reviewing and editing generated content. And this suggests that no matter what AI can do now, human quality control is still required. There are other, maybe more concerning issues with using Gen AI in place of humans that pose risks to marketers, their brands, and their customers. So here are some of the pitfalls, starting with brand reputation. Brands risk, as we were just saying, being homogeneous with their competitors if they're all using ChatGPT. Marketers risk devaluing their ability to tell these unique, thought-provoking stories. And also going back to our social examples, brands may see a drop in users or time spent on their posts if the audience senses that they're viewing content that's not authentic or even unique to the brand itself. In addition, AI cannot provide high-touch customer service for all instances. You won't get the emotional intelligence or empathy from Gen AI, and it may not be able to handle complicated situations, or it will miss the nuance of a customer's situation. You really need humans for this. A poor customer experience will drive customers away from the brand. And brands need to be aware of how their SEO content appears on search. Google's Search Quality Radar, EEAT, which stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. The radar does allow for generated content, but it prioritizes content based on experience, which was just added as ChatGPT was rolling out, and expertise. So the importance of human-generated content from experienced subject matter is even more important now to be discoverable in search. If a brand's content lacks these qualities, EEAT will negatively impact their search ratings. And AI-generated content may be misaligned with what you want to do or have false information. We all know about hallucinations in AI. Generative AI is now notorious for being blatantly wrong, biased, or offensive. There's no fact-checking step in ChatGPT. There's no transparency as to how the content is sourced. And this is on top of a common disdain with the lack of control over what outputs provide, similar to social algorithms and not being able to control what's being served up in the feed. Speaking of social, a survey by Morning Consult in February revealed that the concerns adults have about AI are problems that they already have on social media. Many of these are exactly the same issues that content marketers face with generative AI, like data privacy, misinformation, bias, relevancy, even job loss. The combination of these two could make the problems much worse. According to our Insider Intelligence June forecast, the number of Gen AI users in general is on a meteoric path. And the use of Gen AI continues to skyrocket. Open Gen AI sources such as ChatGPT are raising major concerns about privacy, copyright infringement, plagiarism, and legal issues. Gen AI content and images are often trained on copyrighted material. Getty Images, along with many other artists and authors, have filed lawsuits against AI companies for unauthorized use of copyrighted material in training AI models. So the more Gen AI users there are, the louder the call is for increased regulation and clear guidelines to respect intellectual property rights. One of ChatGPT's limitations is privacy. ChatGPT owns all the data that you give it. You can adjust the settings, but brands really must be careful about sharing proprietary data and customer information. Marketers whose business is in regions with strict data privacy laws, such as the EU, must be even more careful. So in the press today, you'll hear how Gen AI is great but you'll also hear how it may replace humans in their jobs. And there's concern about Gen AI triggering widespread job losses, but mixed outcomes are more likely. According to this June Civic Science survey shown here, the majority of people in every age group think ChatGPT will probably or definitely eliminate jobs in the long term. However, according to an Upwork survey from May, 64% of C-suite leaders say generative AI will prompt them to hire more workers, not less. So millions of jobs could be affected, but AI is not going to replace entire human roles. So AI will usher in the creation of new jobs that require effectively working alongside and understanding AI, as well as roles that require human oversight with the technology. But the impact of Gen AI on job losses and work quality raises an important question for content marketers. Will Gen AI enhance their jobs or eliminate them? On one hand, the potential benefits of Gen AI in terms of efficiency and productivity for marketers are significant. But marketers also see that it could transform or eliminate their roles. 40% of marketers surveyed by Beantown Media think AI will eliminate certain junior positions over the coming years. The dilemma here is that improper use of Gen AI or unmanaged content can result in low quality results. Gen AI technology is rapidly evolving, and it will overcome many of its shortcomings, but as it stands, humans still play a necessary role in preventing pitfalls and in assuring data privacy, accuracy, and authenticity. Brands who rush into Gen AI adoption and eliminate roles could be hindered, not helped, by putting all their faith into Gen AI. We are starting to see some positive assurance. According to a June forecast from Forrester, less than 1% of US ad agency jobs will be lost to automation and Gen AI technology in 2023. The percentage will grow, but only up to 7.5% of jobs by 2030. So Gen AI isn't replacing all marketers, but rather it is here to enhance and improve performance and allow marketers to focus on tasks that require the human touch. So the question is not whether to explore Gen AI adoption, but rather the best approach to adoption. A thoughtful and strategic approach is essential. Brands must carefully navigate the pros and cons of Gen AI and leverage it judiciously to maximize its benefits and mitigate potential drawbacks. Most marketers currently use Gen AI tools on a one-off, individual basis to help out with specific tasks. Technology is just now getting more widely adopted among consumers. So the real impact of Gen AI will be when whole teams implement Gen AI strategic plans to enhance capabilities and processes. And the most transformative and more mature integration with Gen AI will be when it's fully integrated into tech stacks and company-wide workflows on a daily basis, and argue that that's going to be just like email or the internet. So reaching this point with Gen AI could be a challenge, especially if workers lack training or fear elimination. If there are privacy and regulations concerns, or if the AI tools the business chooses aren't good fits for the business. So how should marketers prepare? First, determine how you will use Gen AI content and what your expectations and goals are. Really think about how OpenAI tools like ChatGPT, as well as other more protected AI tools, are good for content creation. You need to keep business objectives in mind. You need to monitor how Gen AI tools perform across all possible applications along the customer lifecycle, so you can design experiences that meet your customer needs while achieving business objectives and growth rates. Then thoughtfully incorporate this well-defined AI content creation process into your content and customer lifecycle strategies. You need to have the right talent and the right resources. To succeed with a Gen AI content strategy, consider hiring roles such as data scientists, in addition to your digital and content marketers. AI generated content is only as good as the input prompts and level of experience users have with the tools. You need to foster innovation and training, develop your employees' AI skills, including effective prompts and data analysis techniques. Don't silo the tech. Integrate AI tools into existing MarTech stacks and your analytics for optimal results. And test and experiment, fact check and research. For instance, test its quality and its performance with internal audiences or beta customers, and then roll out content that's vetted and performs well. And again, it must support your business objectives and bolster the customer experience. Check the sources of the AI generated content for accuracy and validity. You can feed the content into search to check for falsehoods and content ownership. Internally, develop flexible editorial guidelines that can adjust as the tech evolves. Establish policies for AI attribution and potential plagiarism, and for the process of fact-checking and human editing of AI-generated content. And definitely be mindful of ethical implications, new regulations, and your brand's reputation. Stay informed and maintain compliance with all relevant regulations and privacy laws, and make sure that your brand's security concerns are addressed and that algorithms that you use or developed are unbiased. Establishing quality assurance is very important to ensure that you are producing brand-aligned content. And finally, add in the human touch. AI isn't ready to replace humans. It lacks creative storytelling, spontaneity, and originality. In customer support, Gen AI outputs may not respond appropriately to complex situations. It may not provide empathy or incorporate even specific domain knowledge. Humans are also needed to make sure that the content produced has value, represents the brand, and doesn't read like a robot wrote it. So Gen AI still has a long way to go to ensure accuracy, attribution, non-biased perspectives, and it cannot replace human experience, expertise, and emotion. Truly understand what Gen AI can't do as well as what it can do, and know that changes are happening on a nearly daily basis. So build a Gen AI content strategy. It requires careful planning, talent, testing, ethical considerations, and ongoing adaptation to optimize results. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jeremy.
Wow, that was really great. Thank you so much, Kelsey. I have a lot of questions, which I can't ask because all of you guys are going to get a chance to in a second. But before we get to your questions live, we've had some good ones so far. Keep them coming. I'd love to bring back our special guest, Christian Ward, Chief Data Officer at Yext. Welcome again, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy and Kelsey. Outstanding job. I love the report.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Christian, in Kelsey's presentation, she shared some of the least promising use cases for Gen AI that still require the human touch, at least for now. What's your perspective on this, and what do you think the timeline is for AI to be ready to do more than it's doing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And oftentimes I'm seeing reports where people say, it's tone deaf, everything it learned on the internet, it's overly confident, it's off topic a lot. Then again, I like to point out about half the humans I work with on a daily basis, I could say the same thing about, right? Which is we all have our biases. And if I judge people generally on them when they're 8.5 months old, I think we'd all agree, actually, chat and a lot of these are doing pretty well. It's amazing what has happened since marketers and everybody else were sort of exposed to this in scale since November 30th. But AI is not like a cake. It's not like suddenly done, right? It's more like a garden where we're growing tons of varietals, all sorts of different types. Some bear fruit, some will not. And the beauty of this is trying to understand which AI is appropriate for what task. And I hate to say it, I think we're actually already seeing that depending on what you're trying to achieve. And so I would say when we talk timelines, already today, the ability of AI to do some of the incredible things at scale that Kelsey talked about are really viable. But when it comes to this concept of using it, we got to still maintain that human in the loop and the human understanding. I really see this as a tool that's not necessarily, as Kelsey pointed out, not there to replace humans, but it's going to augment us just like we carry around a supercomputer in our pocket, in our phone. That's augmented all of us already. This is just the next step. And the beauty of this step is it used to be that humans that were computer savvy had an advantage. Now that computers are human savvy, that advantage is gone. And so we're going to get to this point where it opens up a whole new world for marketers that I don't think we've even really begun to look at.
Oh, agreed. And kind of brings me to my next question is when we're thinking about that human touch, how do you leverage AI tools to optimize and accelerate content creation without sacrificing quality or that spontaneity that Kelsey was talking about? That seemed to be like one of the biggest concerns throughout her presentation.
Yeah, and it's a great point, especially because I think people are pretty limited in that they're mostly trying ChatGPT 3.5, the free version, versus 4 versus Code Interpreter. And then there's literally probably 6 dozen additional foundational models and large language models out there. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. But I tell you, at least at Yext, the way we view this approach, which is if you want to build quality, step one is you have to start to understand how to put humans in the loop in a way that is helpful. Typically, what I'd like to say is humans can review and improve content at 10 times the speed it takes to create it from scratch. And so the reality is you can really start to up that cycle, particularly for things, as Kelsey pointed out, of like optimizing for a particular platform. Step 2 is you've got to change the way you're looking at this thing. Remember, it's not a database. It is statistical probabilistic outcome of what the next right word should be. So by feeding it knowledge, like for example, at Yext, we use knowledge graphs and a CMS platform to feed it objective facts that then can be woven into a narrative. So by looking at the internet as it was today, the internet today is essentially the who, what, where, when, right? It's sort of you go there to go, are you open today? What time do you open? Where's your store? Those are factual, objective questions. What conversational AI is doing is it's creating the narrative for the how and the why. How do I work with your software? Why should I come to your resort? That narrative can be infused with objective facts. And that's the part where we have found it to be magical. If you have an amazing data set of facts that are human tested, compliant, then you get the AI to create a narrative off of it. That's outstanding because the world doesn't need another 5 best tips for a summer gardening blog. There's going to be a billion of those. Everyone's going to use this for that. That's not really the strength. The third thing I would say is you have to take this sort of agnostic approach to AI. There will not be one AI that rules them all, particularly from the content, voice, or purpose perspective. So having that open area. And then the last thing I'd say again is once you've done all of that, you have to create all the compliance workflows to ensure that you have transparency. The biggest concern that I see with this is not necessarily what it was trained on, where it emerged from. We're going to come to terms on what that looks like. But the part that I'm concerned about is that we're not going to properly vet and understand where did you get that knowledge and can I actually stand by what it said? So divining where the answers came from is going to be a major, major push for all businesses to get right.
Absolutely. I think another thing everybody's trying to get right is their personalization strategy, right? So could you share some examples of how you at Yext use AI to personalize content and provide a more dynamic and engaging digital experience?
Yes, absolutely. This reminds me of a couple news articles that have come out where, you had like WPP partnering with NVIDIA to create 1 million versions of that same Casper mattress ad that follows me around the internet, right? That's not good use of personalization, in my opinion. I think I understand why we're going there with generative AI. The way we look at it is a little different, which is we look at it in the sense of the Latin root of the word data, where it comes from. Data comes from do, dari, datum. It means the thing having been given. And instead of us using data that's been taken, so creepy cookies, all those sorts of things for personalization, we look at it completely different, which is what people freely give you, they do, dari, datum, what they put in your search box or what they talk to you in chat. you can use all of that data for an amazing personal experience. The world has lost sight of personalization is not actually very personal. In fact, the right message to the right person at the right, we can all finish, time, we all learned during the pandemic, that's creepy as anything. You don't actually want people inceptioning into your house. We've all experienced it where you're talking to a friend and then suddenly what you're talking about is on your stream. That's not good. People don't like it. But when people are ready to share what they're looking for, AI is actually magical at that moment. Because if you have all the knowledge stored in a very structured way, and I come to an AI chat, or I use AI on search, or I use AI to generate content, what you can do is actually customize that to where they are exactly on their customer journey. See, I think we're all experimenting. And a lot of that experiment is going to be, we could generate 1 million blog posts with 1 million keywords in it and try and attack it that way. And we'll do that, right? Look, there's never been a technology marketers haven't ruined within a year. And I say that with all humility. Like the phone, but that's do not call lists. Email, spam, right? Robo-texting, all of it. We ruin it, right? We overuse it. That's likely to happen here. But I think the difference here is you're allowing for marketers to enter into a true dialogue with AI as the representative if you give it enough information. So at Yext, we help our customers get their knowledge in a perfect form that is compliant and has gone through legal. And once it's in that structure, then we can try different AI to do the different areas like review response or chat or search. All of those are phenomenal ways to really personalize it instead of sort of merging classic CDP cookie technology with AI. That part I think we're going to do, but I don't think that's really where the real value will be.
And I think we can squeeze in one more, and then I want to get to the audience Q&A. So I'm wondering, in a nutshell, how does your team use AI to boost search engine rankings and identify new content opportunities? If you can talk about that for a sec.
Sure. So one of the things that we found incredibly helpful is now that we have the ability using AI to open up things like chat. Up until this point, I think we all agree, chat prior to large language models was like if-then loops from hell, right? It was sort of the same thing as an IVR call tree. And that wasn't great. And I understand how we got here. But now with these, you're having these dialogues or you have great search experiences. By taking what people freely give you, right? Zero-party data. When they provide that data, we're using AI to analyze that to say, wow, you don't really have great knowledge on explaining exactly how your product or service can solve that problem. And that feeds to the human content team that then takes that data at scale and could say, in the Southeast, in this one region, we're not doing a good job of explaining this. We need some content to come to the rescue. Now, they can use that to also then feed a generative AI tool to assist them in that. But that's the point Kelsey, I think, is making so clearly. You want to use these tools to engage the consumer at scale, but then you gather that knowledge of what the user or the person has freely provided to give you ideas on what to generate next. And lastly, from an SEO search perspective, it's no longer going to be just about sort of Google and organic. It's about all of the knowledge. It's going to be, where is your data going? So that if a consumer or a citizen or a human being asks a question on a website, in an AI, in their personal R2D2, or on your website or in chat, if they get the exact same answer, no matter how they're posing the question, and you can prove that answer, you will be building trust, which I think is fundamentally the marketer's real job in this entire journey.
Okay, well said. That was fantastic. And now it is time to get to our audience Q&A. We've received a lot of great questions, so you can still submit. I really like this one. Ethics are important when using AI, but how do I balance trying to maintain ethical standards while trying to win in a very cutthroat and highly competitive industry? Either of you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I will just jump in and say it's the same way you would treat your ethics at your business. You don't want to be too cutthroat that you're compromising the ethics that your business holds true and holds dear.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Essentially, the way that we handle ourselves with any of these technologies is critical. My concern is, and I think the perhaps what they're pointing to is what I was sort of alluding to before, is that it's so competitive. People are like, yeah, but I could scrape all the blog titles of our competitors, run it through an AI. I saw a person who experimented with this months ago and steal all their traffic for content they really didn't write. And so I think that's where they start getting into that ethical boundary. And I think you're going to have to look at not only how you do it, but the concern that I would have is that there are going to be legal challenges to how we do this. The other thing is, every time you use it to create content that is not human-based, not truly engaging with the consumer, I want to offer you, no matter whether it's decent, this is like the old content spinners back 20 years ago to show up in Google, like, I forget, about.com. Remember these ones? Like that's not a good model. And I think you're going to find that people get really frustrated. We're also feeding that data, remember, back into the AI. So if you want to have an honest dialogue with Google or the next AI of them linking back to your information, they're not going to do that if there's 5 million blog posts with the same garbage in it. You need to establish your authority, as was said, and your expertise, but you also need to establish that tone by infusing actual objective facts. That will keep you on the ethical path. So if you don't have objective knowledge to share with the world on a topic, you probably shouldn't be writing about it.
Fair enough. We had an interesting question. I think this ties into some of the charts that Kelsey shared about job loss and changes that in the industry. How do you think Gen AI use will affect learning on the job by younger employees? And I'll just maybe open it up and first say, Kelsey, when I saw that thing about junior writers will be impacted, more than the writers writ large, it gets me thinking, well, then how do you get to be a senior writer if you can never find a job being a junior writer? So I'm sure there's a lot of disruption on that front.
Right. So that showed marketers' fear of what would happen, that junior writers would be taken away. But my personal opinion is that that's not going to be the case, because you still need that human influence, that human oversight. And you're absolutely correct. Like, how are you going to become a senior writer if you don't start somewhere? So I don't think that those jobs will be completely taken away. I think where Gen AI will come in handy is with more of the mundane, tedious tasks, such as grammar and spelling checks, and of course, brainstorming and ideation. I think those are where it's going to be more helpful than replacing complete human roles that exist now.
And I would say, look, I think seeing the one about the junior marketers made me feel like maybe there was survivorship bias in the survey that only senior marketers got to respond. But I'll put it this way. When I look at any of these studies, first off, none of us rode a horse to work today. Okay. This will change jobs. It's going to change how things work. However, it's about that balance and finding the balance. At the same time, we can't say it's going to help you brainstorm and then say it's not creative like a human. These are very similar constructs when we come to how this works. And so I think what you're going to see is different groups and different communities are going to optimize based on the right tool for the job. We're all just too new with these tools to say this is how or this is not. And so I won't prognosticate on where I think the jobs go. What I would say to everyone is, if you're concerned about this, it's like being concerned about any new technology. The more you engage with it, the more you learn it. Go get an account on 5 of these different platforms. Also understand all the privacy implications. That was a great part of your discussion, Kelsey, because we're not doing this right yet. And there's a lot of mistakes being made. And so from a job perspective, I think demonstrating that you not only understand it, but you understand the compliant, ethical ways to approach it, that's what will take you through this, let's say, tumultuous path. But I think you'll come out absolutely fine on the other side.
Yeah. And I also think training is very important. If you involve your marketers in training and learning about AI and the innovation, it's going to make them feel more secure and important, and not like they're just sitting there waiting for their jobs to be eliminated.
Another really good question here. How big of a problem is misinformation when it comes to using AI? And how much extra time do I need to allot to fact check and make sure my work doesn't include any hallucinations. That's I got to just say, I think that that's a great thing, because we embrace every new technology here, for instance, at Insider Intelligence. So we obviously run a lot of generative AI experiments, and that is one thing that we think about. We make sure, of course, if you're going to be using something like that, it's the same idea. If you use Google Docs, you want to make sure that your document is formatted before you send it out for signature, things like that. But what do you both think? Is there a kind of change of process that somebody needs to have, or is the misinformation aspect of it somewhat overblown?
Well, I think with OpenAI, it's a bigger problem than with a source or a tool that is a little more closed, and you can feel a little more secure with that, because a company is telling you and is promising that they keep your data private and that the information within it is correct. But you still need to be sure, of course. I think with the OpenAI, with ChatGPT, it's scraping from the internet, it's pulling data that's being entered into it. It's not necessarily in any way, shape, or form true or correct. There are no links. You have to really check. And if they say that somebody said something somewhere, you have to go and check it out for yourself to make sure it's accurate. You really just can't rely on the technology to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, it's also, this ties back to the jobs thing. I will tell you, when you look at most people's content calendars, the backlog of a million things they wish they could work on that they never get to, it's just like programming, like engineering code. The backlog of the things we wish we could do at any business I've ever worked for is years long. What this is allowing us to do is maybe pursue more of that. Doesn't mean we need less people, because you still have to have humans exploring it and understanding it. So to me, when we talk about, jobs and the understanding, I think this is actually going to turn out phenomenally well in opening up to finally getting to so many things we wish we could really focus on. For misinformation, this is not a new topic, right? So obviously here in the States, there's a lot going on with understanding what this could mean. It's already, we know, been part of from Cambridge Analytica all the way on. This has been part of what we're dealing with. I think one of the areas that this could really help is Yuval Noah Harari, in his book Homo Deus, pointed out that in the past, having power meant having access to data. Today, having power means knowing what to ignore. And I think that AI can really actually help us with that, which is sift through the morass of all this stuff, because that's where a lot of the misinformation is. So I think we're going to see as many tools that help us cut through that as hopefully are more than the ones that are trying to actually generate that. And that's the hopeful case.
So we have two different questions that I'm going to morph and generate into a different one. That was an awful pun. I wanted to ask you both, what are the best ways to transform content, and what are the best content types to to transform A into B? Like, let's say, to change a speech into a blog post, or to translate particular piece of content. Do people have good luck, let's say, with getting truly fluid translations of content right now? I'll just jump in very quickly and then kick it over to both of you. But I've actually found that interviews, provided the human being is giving the right prompts and directives, can be used to create some interesting blog posts. But the key thing is that the human has to be really in charge. It's all about giving the specific criteria. It's almost like treating generative AI as if it was your intern, that you have to give very specific directions to in order for it to do the right thing. But what do you both think?
Yeah, I agree. Very specific directions. Also, there are opportunities with some AI tools where you can provide specific brand information, specific terminology, maybe very technical terms, so that it sources from what the brand has to offer, not from the internet, for instance. But I'll let Chris jump into and have a say.
Yeah, to me, this reminds me of Sam Altman. He had a conversation with Lex Friedman, and I'll paraphrase, but he basically said, "You're all using this wrong. It's not a database. It's a translation engine. It's a reasoning engine." And that's where I actually think the best use cases are currently, right? Remember, large language models were not created as a database. And yet we're all treating it like the internet. We're like, can you tell me the movie times in Boca Raton? That's not actually what it's made for, right? What it's amazing at is exactly what you two just talked about, which is it translates. It can translate something highly technical to something for a 7-year-old. It can translate from one person's reading level to another person's reading level. Think of what that could do. It's opening a world of cognitive accessibility. We all know about accessibility and how absolutely vital it is to our culture, our society, and technology. But now you're talking about if someone asks a healthcare system a question in very basic terms, my ankle hurts. What do we typically do? We respond with search results that say orthopedic surgeons. That is a horrible response. They may not understand what that even means. We now have the ability to hear them at their level and respond at their level. So the translation is where I think everyone should focus today, which is exactly like you said. If you have a script or if you have a long form piece of content, using it to summarize or to translate it for a Twitter post or whatever, it's actually phenomenally good at that. Again, I want to point out, it is a 20-nothing-year-old intern. Do exactly what Jeremy and Kelsey said. Give it very clear instructions. But I think you'll be much happier using this technology to translate than to sort of be your research attaché pulling facts. It's not ready for that. But the year is early. It's only July. We'll see what happens by December.
How about how are you both using generative AI in your own professional lives to be more productive? I like that question. Brings it home.
Yeah, well, I say for myself, I've definitely used ChatGPT just for maybe saying rephrase something or summarize something. But again, with very specific prompts. And I don't always take what it has to say. In fact, I very rarely do, but it does sometimes sparks an idea and helps me kind of maybe move on, for instance, a little bit of writer's block to the next point that I'm trying to make. It's funny though, because I did feed it in a couple of questions about the customer lifecycle a couple months ago. And then I asked somebody who, no names, was a professional in the field, and they gave me exactly what I had found on ChatGPT. So I knew where it could come from. So, you have to be careful again of that, of how you use ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's I think right now. So I'll first answer the questions from a professional perspective. I essentially have to use large language models every day. It's very much part of my role. I'd say separately, more just directly. If you haven't tried Code Interpreter yet, I highly recommend everyone to go try that. That is also from OpenAI, where you can upload files and say, can you summarize these 3 PDFs for me? Or can you analyze the relationship between these data sets? Again, please set all of your settings to do not share. You can set to private mode. I don't believe in sharing any data to continually train the model. I think that's a privacy issue. But what I would offer is, I think that it can assist in every element. Like you said, I think a research assistant or an intern is a great way to think about it. I've also found that if you feed it some ideas like constructs and you try and ask it, can you come up with current or past metaphors or relationships that are similar, that's actually surprisingly good. Don't get me wrong, it will get a lot of them wrong, but as Kelsey pointed out, to sort of make a connection in your mind that perhaps you're pursuing, it's actually quite good at that. It's certainly better than Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy at metaphors, is what I'm saying, if you're familiar with the movie. The reality is it really does kind of understand those relationships. Try some of those things. Treat it as someone you're speaking with rather than a search platform. And I think you'll be surprised at what it can do.
Bonus points for first Marvel mention on a webinar of ours. So thank you for that. Maybe 30 or 60 seconds each to both of you guys, just to wrap up. Is AI going to speed content strategy or slow it down, or is it a little bit of both?
I wouldn't say either. I would say it's a part of a strategy that you need to form regardless of whether or not you use AI tools or not. I think it will help expedite certain tasks and make things maybe run a little more smoothly in certain processes. But that kind of depends on the team and how they use it and what Gen AI tools that they use and how it fits in with the business and how it's integrated into other systems in the MarTech stack. So I would say it really all depends.
for all of you in charge of content or thinking about anything marketing wise, I think you should go research the region beta paradox, which talks about when someone has to commute 1 mile, they might walk. But anything over 1 mile to 5 miles, they tend to ride a bicycle. And the reality is there's something called the region beta paradox in the middle. And what it says is, if you switched to a bicycle, you would have been better off at all points out to 5 miles in terms of time and effort, but it takes energy to change. And what AI platforms are going to do is they're going to force everyone to rethink their marketing stack. Because yes, currently you can walk and it's okay. It's not bad enough to switch to the bike. But the AI advancement for your competitiveness, for your attracting young talent, you will not be able to replace the time you'll lose if you don't start baking it into all of your strategies today. And so go look at that relationship, and I think it'll make it very clear.
That is a great note to start wrapping up on. And that is all the time we have for today, unfortunately. But thanks again to Kelsey for joining us, and a very special thanks to Christian and to the team at Yext. Our Studio II crew, the eMarketer production team, also deserves a huge thank you for making this webinar possible. As promised, we'll be emailing you a link to today's slides along with a full recording of the session, so keep an eye on your inbox for that. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to tell you what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can register for upcoming live analyst and tech talk webinars at emarketer.com/webinars. On the audio side, don't forget to tune into Behind the Numbers, eMarketer's daily podcast, which you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. And finally, please check out our newsletters. We have a number of options covering digital marketing, retail, and finance, so there's something for everyone. And if you haven't already signed up, you can do so at emarketer.com/newsletters. Thank you again for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your workday.